TRT World's defense analyst, Obay Shahbandar, joins us now in the studio. Obay, now, the Trump administration announced back on December 19th that Daesh was pretty much defeated, and they announced at that time that they were going to withdraw the 2,000 troops. Now they're saying they're keeping 200 peacekeepers there. What's this all about?
Well, it's an interesting shift here of the Trump administration's narrative, and it seems that Senator Lindsey Graham, who's been lobbying President Trump on this plan, seems to have gotten his way. Just a week ago during the Munich Security Conference, Lindsey Graham was meeting with the U.S. Acting Secretary of Defense, Pat Shanahan, trying to tell him that if you maintain a residual force of 200 U.S. troops on the ground, that the other European countries, UK and France, that are on the ground with military forces in Syria will also remain. They seem to have gotten their way. Now, the big question is, what can this 200 people do? It seems that it's going to be, at the very least, they will be able to maintain some sort of force protection of the not-so-secret American military air base in northeastern Syria. That means they'll be able to launch airstrikes against whatever residual element of Daesh remains in the eastern Syrian desert and in the Iraqi Syrian desert. Now, will this force somehow be an impediment to what Turkey wants to establish along its frontier with Syria? And that's a buffer zone to prevent Daesh and the YPG terrorists from coming back. Big question ahead. Let's
talk about that quote-unquote safe zone that Turkey wants in northern Syria. President Erdogan and President Trump had a telephone conversation Thursday night. Any progress in on that front?
Well, we don't know the exact details what's come out from that call, but it is interesting that the two leaders of the U.S. and Turkey had that phone call right on the eve of the announcement that the U.S. will indeed maintain some forces there, despite what many were anticipating, a complete and total pullout by April 30th. That means that possibly a deal is in the works here between President Trump and President Erdogan, where it depends where the location of those 200 American troops is going to be. It could be if it's in the far fringes of the northeastern Syrian countryside. It could mean that those forces may not be an impediment for the buffer zone that Turkey wants to establish to prevent cross-border attacks from remnants of Daesh and the PKK terror group. So a deal may be in the making.
There's a lot of communication between the two sides. We know that the Turks are actually sending over their top military generals over to Washington. The dynamics and the conflict in Syria are changing. The U.S. is pulling out. The defeat of Daesh is imminent. What's the next chapter in this conflict?
Well, what this means is that high-level discussions between Ankara and Washington are continuing, with the Turkish Defense Chief, Hulusi Akar, in Washington right now to meet with his counterpart, Acting Secretary of Defense Shanahan. But at the end of the day, what really matters is what Trump and President Erdogan established in terms of their understanding on the future way forward for Syria. Interestingly enough, there seems to be a good cop, bad cop being played here by the Trump administration, with Vice President Pence just a week ago at the Munich Security Conference having some choice words with Turkey for their decision to buy the S-400 from Russia. But it seems that Trump and President Erdogan may be able to find some sort of solution moving forward. Hopefully, it sustains security in Syria and finds a solution for the thousands of Syrian civilians that are still caught in the crosshairs between Daesh.
All right. Great analysis there, Obay Shahbandar. Thank you for coming on.